think there's a lot of fair criticism, and I hope that people who read the book will see that we have responded to that criticism. There's not, you cannot create an ambitious, large project and think that everything about that project was perfect or above critique. Every single historian's work gets critiqued and valid criticisms are offered. So for instance, I spent a lot of time doing additional research on the role of slavery in the revolution. The argument is stronger. I made sure the language was much more precise and much more clear. Everything I've ever done, I thought could be done better after publication. And I always read things and wish that I had reached a higher height. I think that if you are not that type of person, you are in the wrong field. But I think the difference here was the criticism of this project was seen as disqualifying, not normative for the field, not a matter of interpretation, but that people were saying these facts are wrong. And that people were saying that this journalism needed to be discredited. And that's not normal. And I don't agree with that type of criticism because it's not true. And when people look at the book, there are more than 1,000 endnotes. We cite our sources, and every claim made in the project is based off of scholarship. It might not be scholarships that is a consensus amongst all historians, but when it comes to Black American history and slavery, consensus can be hard.
For me, as someone who just works on global issues as opposed to the US, my most significant gripe, if you will, is that the impression is that slavery is a much more uniquely American institution that I take away, where, obviously there was a lot of slavery globally, there's a lot in Latin America, they have that experience.
We nod to that and acknowledge that, but this is a project on America, and it's not arguing that slavery didn't exist anywhere else. It is arguing that the type of slavery practiced in America and the Americas was unlike any other type of slavery that existed in the world. And we also argue that there is something clearly unique about a country engaging in chattel slavery that says it was founded on ideals of individual rights and liberty. And that was not Brazil, that was not Jamaica, that was not any of the islands in the Caribbean. And the last thing I'll say, my response to this critique is, do we do that about anything else, right? If I want to write a book on the American Civil War, how much do I have to talk about the fact that there's always been civil wars in the world and that civil war is not unique? We don't expect that, but somehow when we want to talk about slavery, we have to talk about how this is an old institution that everyone engaged in. And I feel like that's a way to try to let ourselves off the hook for what we did. This is a story about the United States, and so we focused on the United States. But there's nothing in this project that even pretends to say that slavery was unique to America. What was unique, though, I think, was the hypocrisy of America.
But when all of that is true, how do we take a curriculum like this and teach it in a way that is constructive and patriotic and allows Americans of all colors to feel like they are part of something that is important and that can be greater?
So I'm going to challenge the question, because I don't think the role of education should be patriotism and teaching children to be patriots. I think the role of an education and the role of history is to help us understand the world that we live in and how do we get here. And that idea of patriotism is why the Black story, the Indigenous story, the Mexican American story, the Asian American story has been erased, because we don't think we can have a patriotic story if we have to talk about all the ways that we failed people of color in this country and failed to live up to those ideals. So I don't think that that should be the role of an education. And in fact, I think the histories that we've been taught really render us incapable of understanding the world that we live in, because we've been taught a history where we just believe things are going to work out. And they're not. They work out if we make them work out. And if we don't, then we can do really, really egregious things in this country. So to me, nothing in the 1619 Project and nothing in most curricula that teachers are teaching are asking white children or white people to feel individual guilt for things that they have not done. Should you feel badly about slavery? Absolutely. When I study the Holocaust, I had nothing to do with the Holocaust. I feel badly about that. And I think that is a normal, empathetic human emotion in the face of tragedy. I think we have to stop pretending that the teaching of these hard histories is somehow implicating Americans today. What it is saying is, we are all living with the legacy of this. And that legacy affects you differently if you're a white American than if you're a Black American. And I happen to believe that children are able to engage with complex understandings and ideologies. I understand the need for a kind of unifying narrative, but it can't be a unifying narrative if so many of the people in your country feel excluded from it.